What an honor to be here. Thank you. And it's with deep pleasure that I'm going to share with you the keys to my imagination. Let's go on a little journey. We all have an imagination. And actually, our imagination is a miracle to each of us. It's unique. Einstein said about imagination, imagination is more important even than knowledge. He said that imagination holds the entire universe and literally gives birth to evolution. My imagination needs nurturing. It needs attention. It needs to be listened to and enjoyed. It goes away if I don't pay attention to it. I cannot get to my imagination with my six senses. With my five senses, sorry. It is almost like my sixth sense. Einstein's imagination was so developed that he literally created a new model for space and time and took civilization into that new dimension, into that quantum reality in one generation. He suspended everything that he knew about Newtonian physics and the Newtonian model of reality in order to hold and imagine and create the theory of relativity. My imagination can be shy. My imagination can be stubborn. It can be defiant if it doesn't like the ideas that it's hearing and it wants me to see something else. As important as Einstein is to what I know about imagination and what perhaps we know about imagination, I find of equal importance what a 10-year-old said to his father, a good friend of mine, just a few weeks ago. Jordan said, "Dad, did you know that imagination is as important as knowledge?" How Einstein of this kid. He said, "If I dream of a cure for a terrible disease and I present that cure to somebody with knowledge but no imagination, nothing will happen." He said, the key, or the secret, really, to having our dreams come true is to wake up. Not bad for 10 years old. Our imagination can be educated out of us. It can be pummeled out of us. We can be made to feel almost embarrassed by having it, like, that Hayden fellow has a very active imagination, almost as though that's like not a good thing. I literally almost lost my imagination in college. I went to a great school, but for some reason I kept escaping, coming here, skiing, making things out of wood and concrete, and I saved, I think, myself so that later in life my imagination was really still intact enough to activate it. The most important thing about imagination is to learn how to unlock it. So how do we do that? Remember, you're in my vehicle. These are my keys. I'm sharing them with you. As I say to my son, Jet, who's 15, in my best Obi-Wan Kenobi voice, to unlock your imagination, you must suspend everything you think you know. That may be more like Darth Vader. I became reacquainted with my imagination over the course of a few years in the 1990s. Here I am. In Berkeley, it's 1993. I'm in my office, and my sister-in-law at the time walks in, Christine, and she says, "Hey, would you mind stopping everything that you're doing and pay attention to what I have to show you, please?" That's a very bad English accent, but that is hers. And I said, okay. We had been working on using geospatial mapping at the time to figure out how to gain better access to the layers of information with no idea of how to put them online at the time. But she literally shows me the internet in 1993. It was in the spring. There were probably only 200 websites on the entire internet at that time. FTP sites, Gopher sites. And I had a physical reaction to this. Literally, my mind went white. It was much more powerful than a light bulb going on. And it was like I stopped everything. I said, wait a minute, I get it. I can see how we can do this. So I saw in that instant, or in that moment, a way to make search accessible and available online. I didn't know the details. That was part of the process that came later. But I just said, wow, this is it. I know how to do this. My imagination had opened up. My hair didn't always look like this, don't worry. And fair warning. What I learned also is that in order to keep it open, in order to hear my imagination speaking to me, and that's subtle, I had to keep suspending everything that I knew, or that I thought I knew, or that other people knew, or thought they knew. And I learned a trick, a very small trick to do this. It was to say to myself, maybe, maybe not. So when people would tell me that I couldn't invent a better search engine than the NSA had at that time, and I actually went and looked at them, I said, maybe I can. Christine and I co-founded the company that we called Magellan. It created one of the first 5 search engines. Who here remembers Magellan? No way. That's pretty good. But the rest of you probably weren't born yet, so that's okay too. We, along with Yahoo, Excite, Lycos, InfoSeek, created search, with all due respect, as it is to Google, as it is still today. It may be faster, it may be more complex, but the basic concepts, technically and technologically, were the same. We had an interesting ride with Magellan. It was bumpy at times. I sold the company to Excite in the fall of 1996, and at a Christmas party that winter, a friend came up and asked me, Hayden, you know all about the internet, this new thing. What's the status of certified delivery on it? I go, you mean like the post office giving me a receipt? He goes, yeah, the guy was a lawyer. Go figure. That's a puzzle, though. Our imaginations love puzzles. They love things that we haven't thought of. They just delight in that. And that question of certified delivery, like by then, my imagination was fairly well nurtured. So I saw riders on horseback wearing furry hats and delivering messages from Genghis Khan to the far reaches of the Khan Empire, knowing that that's how they held their civilization together. And I knew that if it is in civilization, it will be in the internet. Now, that seems obvious now, but I knew that then and I could see it. And that little question of certified delivery led to the creation of Critical Path. I founded that company about a month later, a month after that Christmas party. We built the company around the tagline, we handle the world's email, a very broad statement and exciting. That excited everyone's imagination. So those that shared in the process were really excited about this big idea. What we actually did, though, was invent the way to invisibly host a domain. So your email address is at a domain, and you are under that domain. So to invisibly host a domain, and thus all the addresses at that domain, also invisibly, so that we could then, at scale, provide services to and from that domain. We had imagined and developed cloud computing before it even had a name. That company also had an interesting and meteoric rise and was successful. But more importantly, it showed me that we were on a path. The cloud was everywhere. It was already everywhere then. An ominous, I think, if not interesting, metaphor. We outsource everything to the internet. We outsource our memories, we outsource our existence, we even outsource our dreams in hopes that we will find the perfect match in online dating. If anyone has done that, I'm hearing some little chuckles about that. And it works for a while, maybe until you meet the person in person. So it tells me that there might be yet something else that we need to do here. Let's put some of the things I've said, in fact, let's put everything that I've said to a test. Here's the test, and you're all still with me. We're going to imagine a different kind of internet here today. And this is the first time I've ever done this with any kind of group. And I don't mean the exercise of it. I'm going to say things that are going to be provocative. And I want you to remember, suspend everything you think you know about the digital internet. And say to yourself, maybe it isn't everything we need. So here's the idea. I'd like to be able to teleport visual holograms of my imagination. I'd like to be able to send you an absolute, almost in real life, if not real life, picture of me thinking about something or doing something. Now, to do that, I can't digitize that into ones and zeros. It has to be like life itself, so it has to be full frequency. We are full frequency. I need a transport field to do that that's invisible. Does anybody have an idea what I'm thinking of? Light. Full frequency, full spectrum light is a transport field sitting right here in us. It transcends space. It's out in space, obviously. So let's use that for this imaginative internet. Now we need to send things to and fro, so we need an identifier, just like we have email addresses. We need a way to identify ourselves in this new internet. We have one. We have one in our etheric body. I'm going to call that our port 8. I'm making that up. But we have this identifier, a way of seeing someone almost telepathically out there in the field of space and time. And we need a guidance system. We need things to not get lost. I need to transport Scotty back to the spaceship, and I want him to be there in one piece. So we have to use something that works in this field. And those are crystals. Crystals are tunable. We can program them. They can hold full spectrum, frequency, information, and we can build, actually, our transporting machines and our tablets out of them. So let's think about this for a second. I'm talking about imagining an internet capable of transporting or teleporting visual images in a way that isn't like what we know today, across space, and I'm going to say possibly across time, and even possibly able to transport matter. I had a very active imagination when I was little, and I was always drawing these teletransporting helmets on paper, because I thought if I put it on, if I could build it and put it on, I could go anywhere and be in any time. So here I am a few years later, just a few, and I'm thinking about the same thing again, and it's interesting to me. And of course I've talked with some of my colleagues about it, but it's kind of a wild idea. And here you are, I'm asking you to imagine that with me. The reason that I'm asking you is because it's our shared imagination that will create this. It was the shared imagination of freedom that brought down the Berlin Wall in one night. If we outsource our imaginations to machines, we risk losing them, and we risk losing them at our collective benefit. So, what did we imagine? I'll say it out loud. A full spectrum, full frequency internet capable of teleporting and transporting visual images across time and space perhaps even matter. So imagine sharing this. I want to thank you. You let me share my imagination with you, and that's a great thing because my imagination can be shy. My ideas, I can be shy about them. But when I share them, and we share them, the amazing can happen. So my thought to leave you with is imagination traveling across crystalline light at the speed of thought transcends time and space and revolutionizes the world. Thank you.